Our story begins today on the Nile River in Africa.
Fairies of the Nile by Donna Jo Napoli begins with an introduction of the fairies in Zenit's life. Zenit became afraid and then fascinated with them. She began a ritual while she waited on her fairies. Zenit kept the fairies a secret. She knew they were an important piece of her puzzle, but she was unsure of their significance. One analysis of Zenit's personal phenomenon is that she was left alone, so she was delusional and began to imagine the fairies.
Zenit was obviously experiencing a repressed libido. While being left alone could be a negative, Zenit's visions of fairies helped bring her out of her shell. She eventually regains her femininity, but at this point she doesn't know that. Zenit never wanted to live by the Nile. Her husband forced her to relocate to a secluded house on the bank of the Nile. One morning, when Zenit went to the market, she missed her daily ritual with the fairies. On her way back, she experienced a frightening scene that she took as a warning for her absence at the camphorwood trees. Zenit is clearly distraught from losing this intimate time with her sexuality. Zenit has become rather reliant on this magical experience she encounters daily, and now is possibly suffering from withdrawals from her ritual.
Zenit resented making the trip to the market. However, she knew she had to go. If not, her husband would lash out at her and possibly hinder her time with the fairies. By the next week, Zenit had told her husband she wouldn't go back to the market. We begin to see her shift in character as she starts to long for her independence. Zenit's mother had cautioned her when she was young about the fairies of the Nile and the men.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a national crisis alert. If you are a female in an area of close proximity to a cornfield, take cover. If you have time to escape, leave as quickly as possible. If you see men in the cornfield, do not look directly into their eyes. They have been known to cause significant harm to women and girls. Again, use extreme caution in any area within close proximity to cornfields.
After Zenit's altercation, she had another exhilarating interaction with the fairies. She experienced a sexual climax between the camphorwood trees, where she often watched the fairies. Her husband found her naked and unconscious after he returned from work. He proceeded to beat her because he couldn't handle the notion that she could satisfy herself.
This was the point in the story when Zenit's character really changes. She can see the evil in her husband and she feels no love for him anymore. Zenit's silence becomes her power over him. She is resisting his authority in her own way. Several years after the episode, Zenit became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She devoted herself to him and gave him all of her love. While he was still a child, the son died in a car accident while the husband was driving. Years later, the husband became bedridden. Zenit had to tend to his every need.
Zenit's husband just can't understand her. He's confused by her devotion to him, and as a result, he continues to undermine her by keeping a reminder of their son's death at their house.
Zenit blames her husband for the death of her son. She hates the broken van parked outside, at first, and then she realizes it's the only reminder she has of her deceased son, the only reminder she'll ever have of him.
Zenit goes outside and strokes the van in remembrance of her one outlet of happiness, her son. During this time, a woman named Enam came to visit Zenit and her husband's house. Both Zenit and her husband enjoyed Enam's visits, but it's clear that Zenit freely expressed herself when Enam was there. Enam was confirmation to Zenit that she was intelligent without her husband.
Enam is Zenit's outlet after her son died. In Zenit's world, full of nothingness, a friend is the biggest blessing to her. Zenit can express herself to Enam, which is something she has never been able to do before. After Enam stopped visiting the couple, they remained together into old age. Zenit continued to wait for the fairies to reappear after that strange day. They never did.
Has your woman been acting crazy, maybe even independent? We have the solution you've been looking for. Introducing camphor wood oil to cure hysteria. 2 spoonfuls a day keeps her calm and obedient. No more physical labor of constantly beating your wife. With the aid of this medication, all your wife's hysteria will be a thing of the past, available by prescription only. Talk to your doctor about camphorwood oil today. Side effects include hallucinations, rashes, vomiting, and in some cases, death.
With Enam, her son, and the mystical fairies, Zinat finally found herself. Even though she stays with her husband, she doesn't associate with him anymore. I think she stays because that place on the Nile is what helped her realize her true potential. She discovered she's capable of much more than she once thought.
It is ironic that the story is set in the camphor wood trees because the camphor oil is what's supposed to calm a woman's hysteria. Instead of calming Zenith, the fairies in the camphor wood trees enthralled her. She was able to become her true self as wildly as it played out.